listener production.
The creators of this podcast would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which it is recorded. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are the first storytellers of this land. We pay respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, as well as any Indigenous people who may be listening today.
Everyone relax. This is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Anderson. Hello, and thank you for watching.
Wow. What's behind that? Where did that come from? I don't like it. Don't do that. Stop it.
I'm Wil Anderson. Hello, and thank you. It's just for people who have just started the podcast and don't know if they've got the little. Have you ever? Because I'm not a person who listens to things on 1 1/4 speed or 1 1/2 speed or double speed.
I don't get that. That's very common.
But I have occasionally done it accidentally. Particularly now that you can just edge it up a quarter, like a 1 1/4, a cheeky 1 1/4. I've been walking along, one podcast has run into another podcast, and I'm like, oh yeah, they're up and about today. They obviously had a couple extra coffees or whatever's going on, and then you're like, oh no, yeah, that 1 1/4.
We've had a few people over the years message us to go, hey, I listen to you guys on half speed and you sound like you're really drunk or stoned or whatever. And I would argue you listen to anyone talk at half speed.
Everyone.
They would sound drunk or stoned.
Except for Mark Robbo Robinson from AFL 360 who suddenly sounds sober, which is weird. It's got the reverse effect, like toilets going the opposite way in Australia.
I wonder if you listen to ours, it would just be like, have you had a soggy sinny? I think that would be gross.
Hey, speaking of donuts, did you see a couple of bits of donut news? Firstly, they've found a donut-shaped rock.
Sorry, okay.
Let's go on.
Okay, I was going to jump down your throat. No, I wasn't aware of that. That is breaking news. Hold the press.
So, on Mars, on the surface of Mars, there's a donut. They've found a donut-shaped rock.
Alex Williams is en route to launch it as we speak.
All I'm saying is the king might have done some sort of deal with Elon Musk or something, because they've found a donut rock they can't explain on Mars. And the other one, which is, yes, it may be something that you do know more about, which is the fact that the people, the king, the donut family have got on board with the Twisties family.
Yeah, Twisties have been doing this for a while now because, I mean, I'm not sure if you know this, but you're not on social media anymore.
I'm not. No, I don't like to mention it, but I thank you for bringing it up. I appreciate it.
But it's become a bit of a trope now on social media. And it probably was when you were on, but probably with like Smith's Chips or something where it's like, oh, I can't believe they're releasing like Vegemite. So the current thing is Twisties have just done a raspberry flavored Twisty, or Twisties has done like a lemon flavored Twisty or whatever. And people get upset and for whatever. I have never had an inbox. TOFOP. The TOFOP accounts have never had a full inbox. And after Twisties announced that, yes, they were partnering up with Donut King. I mean, look, I'm not saying I'm angry at it or anything like that, but I just can't get over the fact of how ahead of the zeitgeist we were. And I have an email.
Accidentally.
Actually, you know what? I was saving. No, not accidentally. I was saving this email. Well, yeah, no, completely accidentally. I was saving this email.
Unless the good people at, the Donut King have been doing a secret seeding campaign. So we talked about subliminal messaging, this idea that you can seed an idea in somebody's mind by having these little, maybe we are part of the entire
what do you call it?
Donut King resurgence.
It's called a psyop, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Where
we've been the victim of advertising a psyop on behalf of the Donut King.
And again, look, we've restated this 100 times, but I thought Donut King was dead. I thought it was the brand, the franchise was dead and buried.
King is dead, long live the king.
And to the point, Will, that I will confess, I was in Burleigh Heads on Tuesday, and I dropped my wife and my daughter at the dentist. And while they were there, I was like, the Burleigh Shopping Centre's not far from here. You know what? You know who owns that land? You know who resides in that land? The Donut King.
Much like a visit to London would swing past Buckingham Palace, you might as well have a look, even if
I
you...
actually wanted to take a photo that I could whack up on the socials of me like genuflecting in front of the Donut King, paying homage in the court of the king. But I'd actually forgotten my phone. But I did go and get two hot cinnies. And a coffee, which I've never got from Donut King before, and I will not do again. Hot cinnamon donuts, as good as ever. The coffee's barely recognizable as coffee.
What sort of coffee are they rolling? Have they got a proper coffee machine?
Proper barista machine, which I thought you couldn't fuck up when you had you grind up the beans and stuff, but apparently you can. So I just got a flat white.
So since I got my coffee machine, and you said you've had one for a couple of years, since I got mine, I am now so judgmental.
Oh, so judgy.
So judgmental of people making bad coffee because I know how easy it is to make good coffee.
Yeah, flour art, cup art, cream art, milk art, whatever you call it, is a completely different set of skills because I've tried to do that. I've seen my local barista, how she does it, and it's amazing, and Iona really digs it. So I try and do it with like my coffee and maybe a bubbuccino or whatever, but I haven't divined how that's done yet.
Have you watched, there's like whole streams, videos and stuff online of people doing it. You could just go and watch someone do it.
No. No, not having any of that. I've just watched my barista 3 or 4 times and I think I know how to do it.
I reckon I know how to do this. You just got to swirl the cup around and kind of do some jiggles up and down and like a tree happens or something.
Yeah, she does the leaf one, which seems to be the easiest because it's just literally just weigh.
That's your basic beginner one.
The beginner one. Cannot do it. And I don't know if it's because I'm working with oat milk. That might be the issue. Maybe it's.
Oh, I think that is the issue.
Right. Okay. But she seems to do it with oat milk.
Yeah, but she's a professional, man. Yeah. I don't think an amateur can just roll around.
She watched a 5-minute YouTube video that for some reason you refused to watch. You couldn't
be bothered watching, so that's in front. That puts her way in front of you.
Now, look, you've brought up a couple of things, and I want to get back to the Donut King, the Donut on Mars. But this was a letter that I was going to say for the end of the show, but I didn't realize I was going to start in the Land of the King. And it's interesting because you talked about this psyop. This is from Matt. He's got a bit of stuff, some compliments to you that he wants to get through at the start, and then we'll get to the Donut King content. So just prepare yourself for some compliments. Dear Ando and Clawsome. Okay. I discovered philosophy during COVID lockdown. Remember those good times, and have continued to binge on TOFOP, FOFOP, and even a little walking the room with guest Charlie #1. Will, you seem to be the only person that makes Dave completely repress his rage because he laughs so hard with you. That's an interesting observation. Do you think that Dave is less angry in your company because you just keep him laughing? Is it like, are you like a ringmaster with a whip in a chair? It's just like, as long as I keep this thing distracted.
I do feel like when it comes to Dave Anthony, for whatever reason, because I love Dave and I like working with Dave and all the things that people say of Dave and think of Dave, I feel like I am, Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow. Just I have the capacity to be able to subdue the Hulk. I can just rub him on the head and sing him a little lullaby and he just changes back into Bruce Banner.
As a completionist, I burned through philosophy with Will Anderson and then jumped into both ends of your extensive podcasting. Current episodes, original FOFOP up to and over episode 100. Lots of hilarious work on here. This is great. I love it. This is like a little summation of our past hits. Only to realize I had lagged in the original TOFOP. While typing, I just heard Charlie ask, what's a bidet in episode 24, which was 2010, Pimp My Bog. Okay. All right. Well, so let's just say 13 years later, I'm pretty confident I know what a bidet is. I get confused with a domicile and a bidet. Yeah. It's like, if you're a domicile, I really need to take a shit. Wait, do you shit in bidets or do you piss?
No, you don't do it.
What's a bidet?
Or in domiciles.
But what's a bidet?
Okay, a bidet.
Isn't that the thing? I've travelled extensively since then, and I have washed my ass in many a bidet. Is that what you do in a bidet? Please be something. Otherwise, I've got some explaining to do, Will. That, Charlie, that's not a bidet, that's a fountain. You can't just wash your ass in that. No, get out of the Trevi fountain.
That's a children's school bubbler. You have your ass on a bubbler, Charlie. This is not a bidet. You've got the general gist of what's going on, mate. But no, you're on top of a geyser, Charlie. No, that's a fire hydrant, Charlie. No, I mean, again, general concept, you're absolutely nailing.
Charlie, this is Niagara Falls, not the world's largest bidet.
Charlie, you are over the blowhole of a humpback whale, but you've got the idea.
Having just listened to effectively 3 hours of your recent Donut King deep dive, including finding the king in Leichhardt in Sydney, where I was forced by Charlie's passionate donut devotion to eat too many cinnamon donuts, sponsorship here, Donut King, I then jumped back to the year 2010, episode 20, only to find you discussing Donut King.
I mean, that wouldn't surprise me.
13 years of Donut King.
Well, original conversation about Donut King. 12-year gap. Much like, but this is the point. Like, I don't know what the context of and I don't know if our correspondent tells us the context of the original discussion about Donut King, but donuts have been a consistent theme of this podcast. Like, they've been there from the start, particularly your love of donuts, where to get the best donuts, the hot cinnamon donuts, the South Melbourne markets. Like, you know, we've had, I think, general donut chat throughout the various
100%.
Evolutions of this podcast.
To the point that I think that we've even done like a kind of knockoff version where we talk about urine croissants. It's sort of like, I feel like donut chat was Friends and croissant chat is How I Met Your Mother. It's
Joey.
like... It's like equally successful and entertaining, but you sort of...
I don't think so.
Oh, really?
I think it's much more like maybe Frasier. You would cheer your cheers, and it was the croissants of Frasier.
Well, just because it's a croissant and not a donut, the subject matter makes it more highbrow? Is that why?
I believe so. Yeah, I think that's it.
I don't know about that. I do...
and not as popular with the masses. I mean, you know, Cheers, it's in a bar. It was a huge show. Frasier was a bit more highfalutin, fancy.
I suppose that is true, because you're talking about
right?
going to like, you know, artisanal bakeries and stuff like that. Like, I think that the croissant thing really took off when you were living in Melbourne, because you had a dealer.
I mean, well, also, I was just like, I mean, Loon's in Melbourne as well. And it's just like, I mean, it's a croissant city. Oh, it's also a bit colder. I feel like cold weather is good for a croissant.
And when I stayed at your place in LA once, I found in your freezer, it was the only food left in the fridge of the freezer.
Oh, yeah.
2 like frozen, like to be baked croissants, like the pastries, I guess you call it, the raw pastry. And I was like, what this is curiouser and curiouser. And so I followed the instructions and put those babies in the oven and then became addicted. For the next, I think I was there for 2 months. Every week I was just going to that local supermarket and buying some of those little pre-frozen croissants because
the trick to croissants is getting like
hot,
like
piping.
It doesn't matter that they're frozen ones that you've got because you get the advantage of them not having sat around. If you get them hot and fresh, that outweighs any sort of quality thing of going to a bakery or like a specialist place, right?
Yeah, like when I was doing Getaway and I did this little cooking course in a Cambodian market, and we got like all the ingredients fresh from the market, like including the fish, like it was literally alive 5 seconds before we filmed the segment. So, the flavors were amazing. It was the same with the croissant, Will. Like you just get it hot out of the oven and it's like you just dip it in a little bit of soft butter and then oh my God, just the best.
Yeah, Frasier. But this is Frasier. Let's get back to Cheers.
Well, you're asking... what he doesn't give the context of what we're discussing, but I think I remember it because that was when I was living in my Randwick home. And I lived, if you walked a direct line from my front door across Queen's Park to Bondi Junction to Eastgate, there was a Donut King in the foyer of that.
Yes.
And so I remember it was quite a common like thing for me, especially if I'd been like hungover or whatever, is I would shuffle out of bed and take the dog and then cross the park and go get like a 6-pack of hot cinnamon donuts and eat them on the way back. I'd often go to sleep thinking of donuts and then that would motivate me through the next day.
I had a hot cinny, not a hot cinny actually, TM, hot Cinny TM.
Yeah.
A hot cinnamon donut.
I should call it
is
by its
what I
proper
had.
name.
But not by any of its synonyms, ironically. But I had a hot Cinny, but it was the whatever it is, G-Force or G-Train or G-Town or the gluten-free ones.
Oh, yeah.
The green one that's everywhere,
everywhere.
now? Like you can. It's a little franchise, clearly, all over the place. But I was in Townsville, and they had some, like they were doing street markets on the Sunday, and I was like, oh, you know what? Like I can't resist now. Every time I go past as well, I never used to be that person. I could easily walk past a cinnamon donut, but all this donut chat has made me one of those people that every time I'm like, you know what? I should try this one.
Yeah.
Might be good for the podcast. I actually thought that in my head. I was like, might be good for the podcast.
Those ones are good, but like most gluten-free things, as soon as they cool down, they're gross. They're not fun to eat at all.
No, but I mean, mostly you can get those, particularly those little ones that market like that. There was just a little caravan at the market. They're mostly making them fresh to order. So, I was lucky. Had 2 fresh, steaming hot cinnamon donuts.
Okay, so I found this article from USA Today, Donuts in Space. Strange Martian rock formation shows up in rover images. The vast frontier of space is full of surprises, including apparently those that come in the shape of breakfast pastries.
I'm not sure that we needed to get this introduction. The universe is full of surprises.
I mean, of all the things you could say about the universe too, like it's expansive, it's full of mystery. We are yet to scratch the surface of what we know. It's full of surprise. A bit colloquial, I think, is the issue.
Also, is that really like you're wasting time? This is a real getting paid by the word sort of introduction because
Webster's dictionary defines space.
The universe, you've heard of it. You understand what it is. I'm pretty sure we don't have to cover off in a general sense what the universe is.
NASA's Perseverance Mars rover captured the image on Friday, which the Search for Extraterrestrial Institute, SETI Institute, then shared to Twitter on Monday. Well, have they shared it to Twitter? How did you see it, Will? How did you possibly see it?
Because it made the news, Charlie. It made the actual news because it happened in space on Mars. So they don't just cover that on Twitter.
In it, a large circular rock with a sizable hole in the middle can be seen resting on the planet's surface. Around it, smaller stone debris of the same color are scattered. And so they've got a picture of it, and it looks like something you might find at the beach, like an old bit of cuttlefish or something. The rock is very white. It's not like a perfect circle. It's like a misshapen circle, almost like an ear shape. But it does have a distinct hole right in the middle of it, and then there's some smaller pieces around it. So the SETI Institute said in the tweet that the object, which they called, what do they call it, Will?
The donut?
The donut-shaped rock. Don't scientists, isn't this where they have fun and they name something after like the janitor or, I mean.
Or something scientific. Like it should be,
like Alpha Centauri.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, we're going to call this one the rock that looks like a donut? The donut-shaped rock.
Is there a Latin version of that? What's Latin for donut? Donaticus. Rockicus. That may be a large meteorite alongside smaller pieces, meaning it could have originated somewhere else before landing on Mars. Here's what I'll say about Mars from this rover photo. Not as red as we're told. Actually looks pretty brown. I mean,
it appears to be red because of the light and the gases and stuff, I assume, in the way that we view it, rather than it actually being... Like in the same way as water doesn't appear to be blue, like when you look at the earth, like it comes across as being blue, but if you look at water from like, it doesn't look the same.
But generally, right? Like if you had to describe Earth in only one or two colors, what would you say? I mean, it's the green and blue planet.
Yeah.
And even on it, like
that's how you describe it, but it's not like when I walk out the front of my house, all I see is green and blue.
No, think about it. Like I think that's true. If I think about the Earth, and I'm doing it right now, okay. Green and blue. And I'm looking out my window. I see blue sky. I see green trees. Green and blue planet.
But don't you see a lot of brown and grey
You built
and
a house
other colours?
on our lovely green and blue planet, dude. But the planet itself.
Yeah, but a lot of like the dirt and stuff is like, again, brown. There's lots of desert.
But mainly green and blue. I said predominantly, not what like every color spectrum.
Yeah, but my point is when you look at the Earth from a distance, yes, you just basically see green and blue, right? That's like because of that. And when you look from Mars, you see red. But it doesn't mean when you get up close, it isn't going to look a bit brown.
I suppose, on a specific spot where a meteor landed. Okay. Perseverance launched on its current Mars mission on July 30 in 2020 and landed in February 2021 after traveling about 300 million miles over 7 months. The expedition was planned to last about 2 years, though past rover journeys have indicated it may take longer. So Iona at the moment is obsessed with like the moon and outer space, and she's got like a little NASA spacesuit and we read books on the moon. And she's asking me questions that I can't answer. And if you had to, off the top of your head, say, when was the last time man was on the moon? What would you say?
I mean, we didn't go very often.
No.
I know that.
But did we do other missions after Neil Armstrong?
I think that.
I mean, according to Superman 2, we did, because that's where the astronauts got attacked.
Yeah,
by
I'm trying
Zod
to work
and his
out whether
henchmen.
I'm getting my history confused with Superman 2 as well. Look, I know that like it isn't one of those things where we keep going back to the moon. I don't think that
We
that's
found out
like,
what we
it's
needed.
not.
It's grey.
Yeah, we had a look around. It was grey.
The restaurant.
It was grey and bouncy, but probably not worth all the
In
fuss.
fact, we name it
There's a
grey bouncy thing.
There's a flag up there now. If you want to go and visit that, I guess. I don't know. I think we went back, right? You normally go back. I don't know. That's a very good question. I think we went back, but then we didn't
because
go back
Iona was
very
like,
often.
"Can we go to the moon?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Sure, if you want." She's like, "How many people have been to the moon?" And I'm like, "I don't know. When was the last time?"
Well, can we find out now?
Yeah.
Did you find out at the time, or
No, I'm looking at it
we're
right
gonna find
now
out right
because
now?
I only thought of it then, but here we go. Okay, it was 1972. The Apollo 17 astronauts splashed down the Apollo 17 mission. Why did we stop going to the moon? That's the question we all want to know the answer to.
I mean, probably expensive and dangerous, and we'd found out all we needed to find out.
So the Apollo 11, that was Neil Armstrong's one. That was the one we all love.
I was on my plane to Townsville the other day. The co-pilot was called Michael Collins, which made me laugh because Michael Collins, of course, was there was the three astronauts who went on the original mission: Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and Michael Collins, of course, who never got to walk on the moon. He had to stay in the spaceship.
I never knew that was his name. I thought you were talking about the Irish revolutionary played by Liam Neeson.
It was also
in
the
movie.
Irish revolutionary.
Michael Collins.
He's a Highlander. And now he's a co-pilot on a Qantas Link flight to Townsville.
Okay, so the reason we're not being back to the moon is we built space stations. So it's like, hey, we can just launch shit from there. We don't need to go all the way to the moon. And it's boring. Who the fuck wants to be on the moon?
There's nothing there,
No
mate.
Wi-Fi.
Like once you've seen it, once you've seen the pictures, mate.
Okay. So it began working. The Perseverance began working to its primary goal of collecting samples 2 months after landing. The rover, which scientists say will travel. Who gives a shit about the rover? We don't care about that. All right, that's it. That's the donuts.
Okay.
There are donuts in outer space, and that's it for TOFOP. I'm Charlie Claus. No, I did want to talk about a movie I went and saw.
Okay. Great.
I went to The Flash. The Flash, Will.
Oh, now from what I've heard from other people, it is not so flash. But what did you think about the movie?
Well, I have traditionally railed against like nostalgia pandering in movies and fan service. We won't go over the Top Gun fiasco. Enough's been said about that. But I definitely fell victim to the marketing of this because it was Michael Keaton, and you know how much I love Michael Keaton.
Mate, you love Michael Keaton, but we both love Michael Keaton Batman.
Yeah.
Like if your
That's our era.
selling point is Michael Keaton's coming back to do Batman, and then of course that was meant to be the Batwoman or Batgirl or whatever, the one they cancelled.
The tax write-off, you mean? Literally a tax write-off. How many people
Bat
work
tax.
on that tax write-off? Like insane when you think about it.
So obviously that was meant to be part of where we were going to get to see Michael Keaton do Batman. Then there was the idea that he would pop up in these Flash movies, and then there might be the idea that we might even get to see a Michael Keaton Batman, old Batman in the future
or Batman
movie,
Beyond or something like that. Yeah.
Or something like that, or something in the vein of that at the very least, which for us, for people of our generation, is an exciting idea. I love the idea of going back to like an old Batman and Michael Keaton being that old Batman. So I'm like you. That alone was enough for me to look over the fact that the lead actor in the movie has probably committed a whole bunch of crimes.
Yeah. I mean, there was an interesting article I read about it, like 15 reasons why the Flash bombed. And like key to it is the fact that, you have this very problematic lead star. But then the guy they brought in to draw the attention away from the problematic lead star, who they built all the marketing around, then was contractually obliged to be shooting another film at the same time and couldn't do any of the press.
Oh.
And so it's like they had no one going out to promote the film. Like no one, like you look at how hard The Rock worked to just get like middling results for Black Adam. So when you don't have either stars doing press for this film, but it was,
I mean, at the very least, they could have sent Ezra out to kidnap audiences and make them watch the film.
Berate them into
allegedly.
So I'd actually set it aside. I was in Sydney and I'd been working and I just wrapped work and I was like, you know what? I'm going to treat myself with a little bit of gold class action because there's no gold class cinemas up where I live. So I went and booked a ticket and even pre-ordered all the food I was going to eat, had a little bit of medicine, got to the cinema nice and early, like midweek. So there's no one around. It's like having a private screening. It is a mess. Like it is such a mess. But I was not really bored at any point because it feels like in the same way we talk about, Black Adam and that the hierarchy of power is changing, being designed by committee. This feels like a film that was like, holy shit. Like let's just try something. Let's whack this in there, whack that in there. And it's not that it's not entertaining. It's just bizarre. Like, from the opening sequences to the introduction of not only, are you going to see it? Do you want me to do spoilers and non-spoilers or?
You don't need to do, I mean, there might be some people listening who at some stage are going to say, I am going to see it, but I could probably tell you beat by beat what happens from start to finish in this movie from just listening to other podcasts and reading, shit about it. So like, my point being that I don't think you're going to spoil anything. Also, this storyline, it's Flashpoint, right?
Yeah.
It was already done on the TV show. Like
right.
Pretty much this same story they covered on like season 2 of the CW TV show. So like I'm familiar with the storyline. And at the time, Flashpoint has always been quite an exciting story because for people who don't follow comic books, it's a really good multiverse storyline. But there are now so many multiverse things, like the whole Marvel thing's a multiverse, and
everything, everywhere, all at once.
Everywhere's a multiverse. And I went back to the cinema for the very first time. I don't have a lot of thoughts about this other than it was great. And I saw the new Spider-Man multiverse one, and it was great. I love the first one. I love the second one. Happy to see multiverse things in a cartoon because you can actually make all the different universes gel together and look different but still gel together. But the idea of signing up to see another multiverse movie, even if it does have some of my favorite DC characters in it, it's not as appealing as it would have been if you pitched me that idea 5 years ago.
Well,
right?
I actually think that it hinders the story a lot more. They have to have it because they have to bring in Michael Keaton. But if they had somehow like tunnel visioned it on, he's just in one reality and it's the Tim Burton Batman and focused on that, then I think you would have got everything that we wanted from the film, which is that nostalgia hit, but a much more coherent storyline. Because it starts in the.
But I think they were hoping that, Christian Bale, like they might be like Spider-Man, and they not just get Keaton, they get Christian Bale and whatever, and you're like, you were never going to get Christian Bale.
Yeah,
like he was. I mean, you imagine Christian Bale going, "I'm up for this."
20 years until Birdman. He's keen to make some hay while the sun's shining, but Christian Bale is sort of still, contact him in another 20 years. I want to see how his career is doing then. But yeah, so it starts in the Snyderverse, and like, so you've got your Wonder Woman cameo and your Ben Affleck cameo and all this kind of stuff. And like, I'm so glad just to see the end, at the back of that universe. Like Gal Gadot too. Ever since that COVID video, I just find her
instantly ruined.
I find it unbearable to watch. I just can't stand it.
What happened? How did it? It was like it unlocked a spell she had on all of us.
I quite enjoyed the first Wonder Woman.
I thought she was amazing, like such a beautiful woman, funny, but good in all the parts she was playing. Like, I just thought, here's somebody that I'm just going to enjoy watching for the next 10 or 15 years in these sort of movies. And then one misguided video, and I'm like, I am off you forever.
No, it really is. I have that same feeling too. Like, I just am like, you pompous, pretentious, out of touch,
isn't that
disconnected.
Weird? Even though it was her trying to do something nice, even in retrospect, none of us knew what was happening, and she was just trying to do something, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, in retrospect, it was naive and misguided, but a lot of us did things that were naive and misguided during that time because the whole world, and none of us knew that it was going to be what it was and all these sort of things. And so she at least went to the effort of guilting a whole bunch of her friends into doing something, and it's turned me off her forever.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? But it's also corrupted like the Wonder Woman character, like her as Wonder Woman. Because I see Wonder Woman and I'm like, shut up.
Shut up,
Who do you
Wonder
think
Woman.
you are? No one needs to, look at you and your bloody Amazon lifestyle. You've got so much. And you're trying to tell us to bloody sing some John Lewis. Shut up.
Yeah, your superpowers, your invisible jets, private jets spewing carbon into the...
And she's even done like self-effacing interviews about that. I got it wrong. But even though I read that, I'm like, shut up.
Shut up, you.
Like, she just can't dig herself out of that hole as far as I'm
she's
concerned.
done basically nothing wrong in the context of things that we don't cancel people for. I mean, the fact that they've released this movie with Ezra Miller as the lead, and the person who's really bothering us is like
Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot, who just tried to do something nice, if a bit misguided.
So that's where it starts. And like Ben Affleck's an interesting one too, isn't it? Because like 3-4 years ago, you were like, oh, he is so regrets this decision. He just wants out. Like, he's so dead in the eyes. But maybe since J-Lo, he's not taking life. Like, he seems to be having fun with it. He's done a couple cameos as Batman now, and he seems to be like enjoying himself. But that part gets pushed aside, and then obviously the time travel stuff begins. Now, here's what I'll say. I actually quite enjoyed all the kind of like twists and turns, and it's nothing new, but it's entertaining. The Michael Keaton cameo, though, or not, it's not a cameo, it's bigger than a cameo, is...
Right, he's partly in the movie as one of the...
Yeah, he's the mentor-y,
right?
like he's the Obi-Wan type character, the old wizard that they go find but it sort of highlights in a movie with like, you got the Supergirl, Zod, and the Flash, it just really highlights, because we haven't really seen, I guess we have in the first Justice League film, but Batman... in the context of a superpowered fight is completely fucking useless.
Useless.
Just stay at home. Like, strategize from back at the Batcave. Just we'll all be on comms. You don't need to be out there in your little jet, like the jet that half these people can run faster than or fly faster than themselves. There's a scene where he flies the Flash, an alternate Flash, to this battle zone in his plane. And I'm like, you could get there in 2 seconds with the Flashes. Like, they could sprint across oceans and get there. You just stay home, old man. Like, this is pointless.
I mean, because Batman, it is that thing of like, you're kind of in the way, man. You're not helping. You're actually making this harder for us because...
It would be like if your team's mascot tried to line up at full forward.
Yeah.
You'd be like, look, we appreciate the enthusiasm. It's great. And we really need you to cheer us on, but get off the fucking field.
Well, no, but I mean, I don't think you even have to go that ridiculous. It's like if the team's coach tried to play, right?
Yeah.
Because that's all Batman should be.
Yeah,
he should just be the older coach. He's the coach.
Yeah.
Like, he's got the strategy. Like, these are all young, powerful people who need to actually be taught to work, together with each other. And like Batman can do that. Like, can coordinate stuff and help a little bit. But like, you don't want to see your coach like running out into the middle of the field and go and give me the ball.
What you become acutely aware of, in this film is because when you think about the Burton Batmans, like Bruce Wayne / Batman is almost like a secondary character.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost really the Joker's story, the first film, and then you've got two villains in the second one, and he's almost playing a support role. So when you sort of see him characterized, it's like if you had to sum up Michael Keaton's Batman / Bruce Wayne, like what are some characteristics? Don't say he likes bats.
Well, I mean, he was played as a bit of a playboy, but like daft, like a bit kind of eccentric.
Yep.
Like,
I guess so, yeah.
So he was slightly mad, like, slightly kind of, there was a
distracted all the time.
That's also Michael Keaton a bit in everything that he does. But hard to differentiate those two from each other. I mean, he's not the, like the super athletic Batman. It's more about the gadget.
Turn his neck.
Right. Definitely a lot more gadgets. I don't know. Like, I mean, there was a playboy element, definitely.
Well, that's it, right? There's not much. Like, if you think about Christian Bale's characterization, and they go a lot further into his psychology, and that, he traumatized by the death of his parents, but at the same time,
longs down a well full of bats.
Yeah, learns to pick himself back up. Longs for a relationship with his friend Rachel, but feels he's duty bound to save the city that his father championed. All this kind of stuff. So when Michael Keaton comes in, it's like, oh, it's Michael Keaton, but kind of like you said, it's Michael Keaton. It's not, oh, there's Bruce Wayne from 1989. It's like, oh, there's Michael Keaton, and he's got a pretty fancy wig on and stuff. And I didn't think of it until you just mentioned it, but they do introduce him in a way that is kind of kooky, like a crazy kind of kooky Shutaway type thing. And I'm like, all right, so that's kind of consistent. But then for the rest of the film, he's kind of like wisecracking. And I don't remember that from 89, that he was like he kind of had like a dry wit and, a bit sarcastic at times. And
I mean, dry and sarcastic a bit, but it wasn't like zingers. But like, at the older he's got, I mean, this might be a bit of like,
he's
and it's also
now.
a bit of, and dad humor. Like, he's every bloke as they get older, leans into the dad jokes, and he's probably, as his body's slowed down, he's probably relying on the wisecracks a little more.
Well, they sort of like trying to set up this, like, it's weird. It's almost like Indiana Jones and Short Round kind of, what do you call it? Like authority figure, parental figure with the Flash. Like he's a father figure to the Flash. But I don't know, like it just comes across a bit mawkish and corny when he's calling him kid and stuff. Like, it just because we never saw Batman with a Robin. He was a loner in the 89. It feels a bit forced, like they're trying to sort of, like, I don't know, was there even a Robin?
Almost as if that they are forcing it, and have probably not even gone back and watched the original Keaton movies before they just slapped all this together.
Well, seeing him in daylight is another weird thing, because Tim Burton, all those sequences were shot at night. So you're sort of seeing, Michael Keaton, and you see his wrinkly little face in the mask, and it's cute. Like, it's like, oh yeah. I mean, he's just a little wrinkly little man inside that suit. I don't think he's intimidating many people without the element of surprise. But then they bring back, obviously, Zod, Michael Shannon. And I don't know if is there a term that is to the right of phoned it in? Like, is there a more extreme?
Gifted in? Yeah, GIF, like as in like literally just send a GIF. Like, just like in response, if someone, like I was going to say texted it in or like messaged it in, but I think even like less than that is if somebody, sends you a big message like, hey, do you want to come to this thing tomorrow? And then in return, you just send them a GIF. I feel like, is it that, or is it even just thumbs up?
It's not even that. Like, he seems so upset to be there,
like, against his will, resentful.
That's what it's like a hostage video. That's what it feels like. I mean, who even knows if he was They could have just like shot him, you know, he could have filmed it on his phone and then they just put his face on some 3D model or something. Because they weirdly keep his face concealed.
Literally phoned it in.
Yeah. That's to the right. I phoned it in. Literally phoned it in.
Literally phoning it in. He filmed it on his phone and then just sent it in.
Because they sort of keep him in full Zod. Like, you know, they have those weird kind of translucent masks. They keep him behind one of those. And you don't ever really get any extended dialogue scenes with him. He's just kind of like, who's that over there? You know, like, and then there's these action fight scenes. But part of me was like, well, were you contractually bound to do this? Or did you take a paycheck? And if it's a paycheck, like, why are you so glum? Like, was the money not enough? And did your agent trick you into getting this job? Like, surely you can muster up just a bit of enthusiasm.
It's one of those things, isn't it? Like that if you are getting paid, if you're doing something for a paycheck, you might as well earn your paycheck. It's a bit 100%. Rude to then go in and be resentful about the paycheck.
Yeah. If you weren't getting paid, I could understand being glum, but I imagine he was paid for this.
Maybe he did a deal for the first movie after he saw the script and they said, look, we can pay you like over 2 movies. We'll pay you like the same amount for 2 movies, or we can give you an absolute huge amount of money right for the first one, but for the second one you won't really get that much. And he's like, they're never going to make another one of these. It's like, I thought this is a great deal. You know what I mean? Like, let's make this deal. And then suddenly, Michael, get your iPhone out, mate.
That would make total sense. So so he's in it and he seems really, really upset. And then they do this. And this is a big spoiler. Look, it's not a big plot spoiler, but it's a big like reveal spoiler. So if anyone wants to save themselves, turn off now or skip ahead. They have a moment in which Barry is seeing the full multiverse in effect. And so he's basically looking around at all these like portals to different, essentially Warner Brothers properties. So there's like there's Adam West's Batman. There's Christopher Reeve and Helen Slater as Superman and Supergirl. There's like George Reeves' Superman, which is a bit sort of distasteful because I believe he killed himself because he hated being typecast as Superman so badly.
Well, we can fix that history. Don't worry about that. That's fine. We'll whack you in our movie. Yeah. Don't worry, there's nothing problematic about this movie in any way, so we'll just jam you in
I guess when you got that guy as your lead, if you've opened the door to problematic, let's just do a bunch of immoral shit. Let's just revive.
Right. What else do we want to put in here? Louis C.K.'s in there, Woody Allen's in there. Chris D'Elia for some reason is in there.
So they think about this, and because I've heard a few like pods. I know like James on the Weekly Planet fucking hated this moment, and I didn't hate it, but I felt like they didn't have the balls to fulfill the premise. If they're saying, oh, how cool is this little in-joke? Like you're looking into, because this is how far they go with the in-joke. So you're seeing like all these different Warner Brothers DC properties that have been filmed previously, TV or film. They don't show the TV flash, which I thought, that's a fucking obvious one.
That's the obvious one. I can't believe the TV flash is not in this movie.
Yeah, not at all. Not mentioned. It doesn't exist.
That is like the most obvious one that in this movie, you've got to have a moment where you get the TV flash, surely.
They don't have the TV flash. They also don't have Green Lantern. Like at one stage, I see this big sort of green orb portal opening, and I'm like, oh, this will be hilarious. They've got Ryan Reynolds back. Ryan Reynolds seems like the kind of guy who would think, oh, yeah, this is funny.
Who would do anything.
Yeah. Except appear in a Gal Gadot video. And for that, I respect him and I hate her.
He must be Marvel contracted at the moment, though, wouldn't he be Ryan Reynolds? Like, I can't imagine that he would be able to. Although Ryan Reynolds is so big now and so powerful that you can imagine that he would probably just be able to do whatever he wanted.
Yeah. But so not even reference it, you know? Like, I think because they go so deep with this, like, sequence that so you know the story of Kevin Smith wrote that he tells that story about pitching the Superman film to John Peters, and he wants a giant mechanical spider in it, and then they cast
later ends up in Wild Wild West.
That's right. So and Nicolas Cage was going to play Superman at one point, directed by Tim Burton. So it is one of these.
Nicolas Cage like Superman.
Yes, there's an Elseworld where you see Nicolas Cage as Tim Burton's Superman fighting a giant mechanical spider. But get this, it's not like real now Nicolas Cage, and they've de-aged him. They just fucking created a completely 3D, like Polar Express, creepy, uncanny valley as fuck Nicolas Cage.
They couldn't get Nicolas Cage.
I mean, who can't get Nicolas Cage? He'll do anything except that Gal Gadot video. And for that, I respect him and I hate her.
I mean, I think if Nicolas Cage had done that Imagine video, we all would have loved it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, him and Keanu.
Imagine. There's no heaven.
There's no heaven up there. It's easy if you try.
Like, again, it's winning me back, even to Gal Gadot. I find that amazing because didn't he name his kid isn't his kid named like
Kal-El or something?
Jor-El or Kal-El or something?
But I heard him interviewed and I believe it's actually, I think it's it's an Israeli name or something like that. It has origins beyond comic books.
But was also because of the comic books.
I think so. He's a big comic book fan. So they do this big moment and I think it's just such a missed opportunity. But this is what I mean about the film is just filled with all these kind of like ideas, which some work and some don't, but there's no cohesiveness to it. And the whole thing feels like a very desperate attempt to distract us from the fact that their leading man is problematic and this universe, this extended universe is dying.
Well, the fact that they've essentially made an announcement before the film comes out that says, you know what, there's no real stakes in any of this. Don't pay too much attention and worry too much about this because we're starting again fresh. Okay, this is not starting again fresh, but let me riddle you this, picture me this. Do you think, so James Gunn, taking over the universe there, could you make in this day and age, now that he is in the position he is in the entertainment industry, we're used to him playing, comic book characters now. He's had great success doing it. Could there be a Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie, like a sequel or another movie? Could you make a good Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie now? Because the idea itself isn't a bad idea, right? And Ryan Reynolds would be an okay...
Like a completely new property, or are we going back to the Ryan Reynolds-averse?
Well, I mean, I just mean it's almost like
reboot.
In the same way, like a reboot.
With Suicide Squad.
Yeah,
so
exactly,
he's back as Hal Jordan, but we're starting again. Okay,
and keep some of the same actors, keep some of the same characters, but we're just having a fresh go at it. Here's our second crack at doing this properly this time. I think
if any director could do it, he seems to have a handle on that because it's a cosmic comic, right? Like it's outer space and fantasy, outer space fantasy. And so he's done that with Guardians of the Galaxy. So I mean, I think that very much is in his wheelhouse. I think they're doing a Green Lantern Corps TV show. I think that's one of the things they've announced. I don't know how hands-on he'll be with that. But I just think that the Green Lantern, it just falls down around his power. So what's the idea that he can create like holographic, solid holograms?
Solid holograms.
Like, I mean,
he has a ring, doesn't he? Isn't there a ring? There's
a ring, but like, but wouldn't I think that if that was me, it would just be like a giant shield or a giant brick. Every situation can be fixed. You know what I mean? Like, why would I go to the lengths of imagining a Formula One race car running around like a track or some complex Gatling gun? I'll just there's a bad guy, giant brick. There's a bad guy trying to hurt me, giant shield.
Yeah, but I think this is why Ryan Reynolds would actually be good in the part because you lean into the ridiculous nature of him. Like, yes, of course. Like,
is it almost more comedy focused? You're saying your reboot?
Well, I think you could lean into the comedy. Like everyone's used to seeing him play. What's his face now? So I think people kind of like. I think you could lean into. I mean, not make it a knockoff, of that, but I like the idea that. Yeah, I reckon he could do it. Like, I mean, I just like the idea of James Gunn going back to this would be the ultimate, like, James Gunn sort of like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to fucking make a good Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie.
I just don't know, if the premise would work.
Why is that where you draw your line in the ridiculous world of superheroes? The hologram.
I don't know, because his weakness is like yellow. And I'm like, so if I piss on the Green Lantern, can I defeat?
Yeah, well, that's one of the scenes. And then also we get Coldplay in to sing the song "Yellow." That's a funny bit we do. Big Bird, he loses a fight to Big Bird at one stage. That's great. A good bit.
I love it. Sounds great.
The Yellow and Eminem kicks his ass.
Well, let's get to the mailbag and then we can go home. I got a bit of love for Two Guys, One Urn, which is in the TOFOP feed. You've done 4 episodes.
3 at the time of recording this, but by the time people hear this, they will have also heard an episode with my special guest, Charlie Clausen.
Charlie Clausen, who up until about 3 weeks ago had not watched cricket, Test cricket, or any cricket really of any kind in about 25 years.
I know.
We'll talk. You'll hear about it on the show, but it feels like I've woken up from a coma. That's what it feels like. Things are different. Like I remember what it is. The rules are all the same, but there's a lot of little differences, and you'll hear about it all on Two Guys, One Urn in the TOFOP feed. But this is from Matthew. He says, "Hey guys, this is more for Will, and it's a bit of a wish list, really. I'm loving Two Guys, One Urn, and would like to suggest some possible guests for upcoming shows." You're taking requests.
Imagine if you go through them and I just go yes, no publicly. But okay, you tell me the suggestions.
I'm a huge fan of Andy Zaltzman, the comedian, satirist, and BBC 5 Live radio cricket statistician and lover of bad puns. You familiar with his work?
Maybe Andy. If I want a British person, I'm not sure that I do want a British person. I don't want to balance. I want to talk to Australians.
Oh, right. I was going to ask you
Australia.
about that. Okay, yeah. So you want complete just bias.
This is bias.
Yeah,
I feel like that's it's not a real proper cricket podcast where people have to be at least pretend not to be biased. It's pretty biased.
Okay, well, this email's coming from England, so I don't know. I think the rest of these requests are going to piss you off. Daniel Norcos on 5 Live has a podcast called Zero Ducks Given. The co-hosts of these pods are also very entertaining. Toby Tarrant and Steve Finn. Miles Gupp from the Middle Please Umpire pod. Geez, a lot of fucking cricket pods out there. Finally, the 2 hosts of the Final Word podcast, Cricket Tragics, commentating for SEN and doing a daily roundup throughout the series, Jeff Lemon and Adam Collins, which I've been put onto by Adam Swire. I've been listening to that podcast.
Yeah, it's really good.
And
I've appeared on that podcast in the past, and I listen to their, particularly their dailies. If you aren't like me and staying up all night watching the cricket, they do these great little short episodes at the end of every day's play, which are a really good catch up in the morning, I find. So they're great. I would love to have them, but I'm not going to dirty them. They're a bit too non-biased, Yeah. They're professionals. Plus, they have their own cricket podcast.
And also, doesn't one of them live in London? So again, too English for you.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, he just got married. I assume to an English person.
Gross.
And I don't like that. Nah.
I really hope you can continue to produce this pod. I love Two Guys, One Cup, but I'm a rugby league follower, so it does not hit as hard for me as I'm sure it could. I absolutely love cricket, and I'm based in Old South Wales. Hey, there's an Old South Wales. Of course, there must be. So I'm working from home for the next 5 weeks. It'd be great to listen to several daily reviews after each day's play. Well, you've got lots of podcasts to do that. I don't need it from Two Guys, One Urn. 2 final guests just came to mind, and they have an old Triple J connection. Rampaging Roy Slavin and the man that never lets them get away, H.G. Nelson.
I mean, look, they would be great, but
you don't have a booker, do you? You're doing this. You're asking people to just come on.
I'm just asking my friends to do this.
Yeah.
I've made Charlie watch Test cricket for the first time in 25 years to do it. So some of that's a little beyond my control. And then I'd have to explain to Roy and HG what was going on. And then I'd have to try to get a word in.
Yeah. and you've got a lot of shit on at the moment. So ease of delivery is the priority for you at the moment.
Correct.
This is an interesting proposition. This is from Michael, who's in the States. Hey guys, a long-time listener, and I'm also a cuddler. My old comedy pal David Brown plays the cyborg guy in Jury Duty, the nerdy dude.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd love to talk to you about it on the show if you like. Let me know if you're interested, and I'll put you in touch. Have you got any questions about Jury Duty?
Heaps.
Do you want to get him on?
Yeah,
we could do it as like a TOFOP with friends. Bonus.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to
Sounds
send
good.
that to
Let's
Mike
do
III. I'll send you the details of this guy, and let's get David Brown, the cyborg guy. This is more Two Guys, One Earned Love from Sasha. Hey guys, very appreciative of the content you produce. I'm really loving the cricket podcast as well. When you had Adam Spencer on the episode, I was hoping you both might reminisce about the infamous/famous song you did together on the radio about Matt Hayden. It'd be amazing if you guys could chat about this or play it sometime again.
Oh my God, we have chatted about it so many fucking times. It's the only thing that anyone ever wants to hear when they get us back together is I'm fucking sorry, Matt Hayden. And you know what the story of that song, I've talked about that song so many fucking times. It still exists. You can find it somewhere online if you just type in I'm sorry, Matt Hayden. Like there is a copy of it floating around. Please remember it was before auto-tune and like artists releasing. So literally we had just like the opening bars of I'm sorry, Miss Jackson looped over and over again that we just like rapped over the top, and that was just how it worked. We had no production, none of that sort of stuff. And it all came because I had slagged off. I'd said that Matt Hayden going to India, I said it would be better for them, the Australian selectors, to pick a bucket of sand because at least a bucket of sand wouldn't dangle his bat outside off stump and get caught in the slips all the time, which is what Matt Hayden was doing at the time, and then went to India and made more runs in India than any Australian batsman ever had before. And I was running on Bondi Beach. I remember, you know, when you get like, you know, moments of like inspiration. I used to jog the soft sand at the back of Bondi Beach, and I remember distinctly just like in my head going, I've got it. I've got to write a song of apology. And I came into Adam and I said, this is the idea. I'm sorry, Matt Hayden. And he ran with it. Like, I mean, half of the song is like definitely like stuff that he came up with. But so we go out the back of Triple J. We like get these two bars that there isn't any rapping over and just get them looped over and over and just like record this thing that we just imagined no one would ever think of again for like, you know what I mean? Like 2 days later, if you ever hear it again, you can tell it was done by somebody who did not think it would be heard more than 2 days later. And 20 years later, people are still like, talk about that song. We've talked about it a lot.
That's your version of Radiohead's Creep. It's like, look, we were just fucking around. We didn't know it was going to be our most popular song.
Man, like, and honestly, like I've talked to Matt Hayden about it. I went on Matt Hayden's podcast and talked about that fucking song.
We had a lot of feedback regarding whether or not you should be introducing your guests when you're doing TOFOP with friends. And a lot of people say you should. Lisa's one example of these people. She says, I'm listening to 435 when you read the letter from Mike. He said he wants to be able to introduce guests on TOFOP. As when he's listening to the pod, it just auto-plays the next one when his phone's in his pocket. This is also my experience. My phone just plays the next step, either from the feed I'm listening to or my upcoming playlist, so I never know who Will is talking to either. But it hasn't bothered me enough to write in about it.
Well, I normally introduce people.
Do you call that a paradox?
I think there was only one. I think there was only one time that I didn't because I discussed it. Sometimes I say I mostly do it. I just say that it's weird that I'm doing it because people probably know who is on the show already.
Yeah. Well,
but it's rare that I wouldn't introduce someone.
Well, so I had a couple of weeks back, the second week of TOFOP with friends, formerly FOFOP, I had Chris Taylor on from The Chaser, and I was thinking long and hard about like how do I do the intro and all that kind of stuff. And I think it was just, I listened to a bunch of other podcasts, and every single one of them, apart from a couple of older ones, would introduce the guest, whether or not it's just like, because I used to give context around who my guest was. You might know them from this. I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. I'm going to, or if it's simple, like The Chaser's Chris Taylor. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show. That was easy. Now that should be enough, right? Like, because then we're going to start talking about stuff and you just listen to us talk. And if you like it and you don't know what The Chaser is, then you can look it up. The Chaser's, oh yeah, he's this guy. That seems to be neat.
I think that's more than enough.
Okay, great. Lisa finishes. Now the issue has been raised, I feel I should support my fellow Queenslander and say hashtag I stand with Mike. Will, P.S. Will, if you go to Cairns, I live in Brisbane. if you can, you should go to Cairns. I live in Brisbane, but I love Cairns. You've never been to Cairns?
I assume that's for shows, probably.
Oh,
I'm guessing. So I've done Townsville, and I am actually going to Airlie Beach, which is not Cairns at all, but up that way later in the year, I'll be at the Airlie Beach Hotel. And actually, while we're just talking about this, I'll plug the fact that I have shows coming up in Glenelg at the Glenelg Winter Arts Festival. I'm in Wyong at the Art House in Wyong, and I've either just done the Sutherland Shire gig, or it is this weekend when you're listening to this. It'll be one or the other. And so it's either happened or it's about to happen.
And I want to plug our Patreon, patreon.com/TOFOP. Every couple of weeks, we put bonus episodes up there. You also get full ad-free episodes of every show on the TOFOP network, plus full videos of this podcast, TOFOP, plus lots of other great bonus content. I had a great chat with Foz the other day, and he said, "You realize I'm a full-time employee of yours?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" So you guys are doing so many pods now. Like, he's a single-man cottage industry, TOFOP Productions. That's it.
Well, I hope he's fucking grateful.
I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will and
Sorry, Matt Hayden. You are for real. Never meant to say that you were crap. Apologize, saying you could never bat. Sorry, Matt Hayden. You are for real. You scored centuries with some giant hits, much better than a Michael Kaspovitz. Matthew Hayden, he's got it going on. 60-shaped haircut, forearms are oh so strong. There's no way wanting, he just can't score a run. Hope you're in the green baggy Matty forever, 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 forever.
Listener.